people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Ahead of this weekend's mega match, the defending champion Natasha Jonas says, "This is one of those occasions I want to remember and savor. A hometown title defense in her native Liverpool against the former champion at super featherweight, moving up in weight, Mikaela Mayer, a stiff test." Natasha says, "As an athlete, you always focused on the result. As time passes, you're asked how big of an occasion it was." Jonas explained the boxing scene. "This is one of those occasions I want to remember and savor. I hated when I looked back and saw how big and monumental an occasion was, and I didn't enjoy it at the time. Now I live in the present and enjoy the moment when it's there." This is a homecoming fight for Natasha Jonas, and the thing about homecoming fight, do you remember what happened to then unified junior middleweight champion Jarrett Hurd in his homecoming fight at the hands of Julian Williams, and what happened to Julian Williams in his homecoming fight in Philadelphia after he beat Jarrett Hurd? And what about what happened to Katie Taylor in her big homecoming fight against Chantel Kimran? Do you remember? I don't know what it is about homecoming fights. Perhaps it's the occasion, boxing in front of the hometown fans and being distracted by that, but a good number of homecoming fights for fighters went sideways, though not all of them. Chris Billum-Smith became a champion at cruiserweight in what was a homecoming fight, so there is that to consider. It's at least one time in recent memory that a homecoming fight didn't go sideways for the hometown fighter. How will Natasha Jonas's homecoming fight go this weekend? Looking back, Jonas is fond of all that she achieved, but left with only a blur of what took place prior to each and every one of those events. The thrill of headlining a show in her hometown has not at all been lost on her this time around, particularly ahead of what could go down as a career-defining win. There have been a lot of firsts for me these past few years, noted Jonas, who won 5 straight bouts. There were moments I didn't appreciate it until they were done. Tunnel vision. Focusing on the task at hand. Focusing on the assignment to ensure the desired result. I think Natasha Jonas could do with a bit of that given who's in front of her. A 33-year-old Mikaela Mayer who's itching to get her crack at the apple, dying to become a champion again at a second weight. Mikaela's 33, Natasha's 39. It's an interesting situation because Mikaela's the younger, fresher fighter of the two and the taller fighter, the longer fighter, but perhaps not the stronger fighter. I said it in my previous video. Natasha packs a bigger punch than Mikaela Mayer. Even if she is the older fighter and the shorter fighter, she's got home field advantage on her side. She's the hometown hero, she's the house fighter, and she is the bigger puncher. She's also a southpaw, unbeknownst to most. Mikaela Mayer, maybe she came across 1 or 2 southpaws in the amateurs, but as a professional, this will be the first time she fights somebody that leads with their right hand. That's saying that it's been years since Mikaela was opposite the ring a southpaw. That the last time she would have saw one, it would have had to have been in her amateur days, because as a pro, she hasn't fought one. She hasn't had to. That's interesting. But if I'm backing Mikaela Mayer to get the job done this weekend, it's because I believe she wants it a little more than Natasha, who's been there and done that, shared the ring with her rival, Terry Harper and Katie Taylor, been a champion at 2 weights, been Ring Magazine Lineal and Unified champion in one, IBF champion in the other. She's 39. I know she doesn't look it, and I don't want to keep bringing that up, but I do question as to whether or not Natasha Jonas has the same hunger at 39 that Mikaela Mayer has at 33. Mikaela Mayer needs this victory. There's a lot more that she wants to do in the sport, some of which Natasha's already done. Mikaela being the younger, fresher fighter with the fresher set of reflexes in tandem with her being the taller, longer fighter, and I think the somewhat faster fighter and a bit more fluid, mid-range to inside than Natasha. Natasha's best punches seem to be her long-range punches, her straight punches from the outside coming in, whereas Michaela is a little bit more malleable. She can box from the outside and bang on the inside. We saw that in the Maiva Hamadouche fight, just how proficient Michaela Mayer can be within close quarters. She's actually better on the inside than most tall, lanky fighters. At that range, most tall, lanky fighters are vulnerable, whereas Michaela, she can hang and she can bang. Knowing that she's the away fighter on hostile territory, fighting the defending champion, I think Michaela and Al Mitchell know they can't afford to just box here and use the jab. No, they have to take it to Natasha Jonas. They have to show gusto and initiative. To stand behind the jab, no, Michaela's got to step into it and take it to Natasha. My heart is with Natasha. It's with Liverpool. But my head is with the American. It's with Michaela Mayer. She needs this fight. She needs to win this fight. And I think Michaela knows that she needs to win this fight. She needs that belt. The rest of Michaela Mayer's career is on the other side of the Jonas fight. She's got to win it. She's got to get there. In men's lightweight and super lightweight news, our continued discussion revolving around Turki Alalshikh's interest in making a Davis versus Haney fight in Saudi. As he says, he has reached out to Al Haymon to get some of the PBC fighters over there in Saudi Arabia. If this happens, at least according to Marcos Villegas, we will have all the promoters working together to make the best fights happen. And we'll see if that happens. We'll see if Al decides to play ball or if he's going to stay in character and be the obstruction artist that we've known him to be the last couple of years. Though, as it pertains to a Davis versus Haney fight in Saudi Arabia, this has given rise to a lot of discussions. A feeling that the Saudis are poaching all the big fights that should be happening in the American market.
I don't think people realize, like, this, like, I just might have a little bias in it. And it's not toward, it might be towards Turki Alalshikh. And it's nothing like
Bias?
me being a favor to PBC.
What do you mean bias?
Yeah, it's like, what I'm saying is, I feel like we having fights taken away from us in the state. I feel like we sending fighters over there instead of having these fighters fight in-house. You know what I'm saying? Like
Man, I don't give a fuck about that, bro. First of all, this is boxing is a worldwide sport. It is global. You are a world champion, not a USA champion.
Yeah, man, but it's just that there's just something about big fights happening in the US and not Saudi Arabia. Like, bruh, it's just
everybody gets their turn, though. You know what I'm saying? That's why God is good, because you know the top can't stay at the top forever. Las Vegas can't be the mecca of boxing forever.
That fight, the biggest of the big fights in boxing, may now be outsourced to Saudi Arabia, is not being received well in some quarters. But what big fights are we referring to? Beterbiev versus Bivol, Fury versus Usyk. I said it before, and I'll say it again. If not for the Saudis bankrolling those fights wouldn't happen. What fights are they referring to? What fights are they talking about? Joshua versus Wilder, because the Saudis wanted to pay for Joshua versus Wilder. Need I remind you that before the Saudis even got involved, they tried to make that fight amongst themselves. The Zone offered Deontay Wilder $100 million to do it, and he turned it down. The Saudis stepping in and trying to do it is the only reason it became a hot-button topic again. That is, until Deontay Wilder stunk out the joint. That is, until he lost a lopsided decision to Joseph Parker, who he was widely favored to beat. So I'm going to ask again, what fights are they poaching from the American market? And what has the American market done the last couple of years to stimulate the sport of boxing and keep this the mecca of boxing, the global stage for it? I saw a Twitter account that goes by the name Bad Beats Lex say, no, was just making the point that DAZN is horrible for boxing, totally inept, and haven't done anything to grow the sport. Just like this stupid Saudi bullshit. Enjoy it though, it's right up your alley. Never mind that DAZN delivers boxing content to over 170 territories around the world, catering to those markets and growing those markets, exposing them to fighters they would not otherwise see. Never mind DAZN, but you're angry that the Saudis want to bring big-time boxing to their region of the world, that they're making fights that otherwise could not be made.
Would not be made.
I saw another Twitter account that goes by the name King Ace LXR. Saudi, y'all can have all them bum-ass heavyweights, but leave Tank and Devin alone. That's for the real guys and the hoe bitches to come out and have a good time. There are a few, who are angry. In Turki, Alalshikh's expressed interest in bringing that fight to Saudi because these guys want it to happen here, as if it's going to happen at all. To date, Gervonta Davis, who's supposed to be the A-side to Devin, he hasn't actually made an offer to do that fight with Devin.
The only people with the means and money to satisfy the financial demands of both the fighters, not just one, it's the Saudis.
You're angry that they want to do this fight. They want to make it. They're the only ones talking about making it because Gervonta isn't.
He hasn't made Devin an offer.
Another Twitter user that goes by the name My Crazy Life said no. This is a fight that has to happen in the States. Ain't nobody watching this shit at 6 p.m. This fight would be literally an event for the black folks.
Is he serious?
It's not an event for anybody if it doesn't happen. Black folks, white folks, Asian folks, whatever folk you're talking about and you think you represent, it's not an event for anyone if it doesn't happen. And so far, Gervonta has done absolutely nothing to make it happen.
And the fight doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at all anywhere unless you can satisfy the financial demands of both the fighters, not just Gervonta. The Saudis can do it. They have the money, and you have a problem with that.
A guy that goes by the name Dream Motivated does. He said, nah, that's a Black America fight. You can have the heavyweights, though, as if it's up to him to dictate what the Saudis can invest in. Let me fill you in on a little secret when it comes to prize fighting.
What?
The color of your skin, black, brown, or beige, it doesn't matter because the only color that matters in prize fighting is green.
You fucking bozo.
These idiots in America, who I told you about in my previous video, the kind of people that would cut off their nose to spite their face, that now that the Saudis want to make this fight happen, make it a reality, and have the resources to do it, these guys are complaining that it's not happening here. Nothing's been happening here.
Neither Gervonta or anybody on his team have made an effort to make that fight happen here. And why isn't it?
I saw Turki Alalshikh's 19-minute sit-down interview on DAZN, and he is very much a boxing fan, and he understands what's happened to boxing in the American market. In so many words, he knows that boxing in the States, it ain't what it used to be. You can thank piracy for that.
These fucking bums that steal practically all the content they sit there on Twitter talking about like it's a victimless crime.
Including Gervonta Davis's fights, but not just Gervonta, Deontay, and practically every pay-per-view the PBC has put on, pretending to be supporters of Al Heyman's PBC, all the while they're a part of the problem.
It's bad enough that he's inundated the market with pay-per-view after pay-per-view that are too close together, too many pay-per-views happening in one calendar year.
That's bad enough. But it's not like you fucking bums are buying them. Why do you think Showtime ended up leaving the sport of boxing? Because of the metrics.
Don't start talking numbers because you may as well be speaking Chinese to these bozos.
Crabs in a bucket. The kind of people that would cut off their nose to spite their face. They would rather that the fight not happen at all than the fight go down in Saudi. Moreover, I suspect they would rather the fight not happen at all because they don't want Gervonta to end up like Spence, to end up like Wilder. That if he leaves the bubble and he fights Devin, he'll be the next PBC guy to get exposed.
Because when you think about the PBC's flagship fighters, the flag bearers for the banner, how many are actually left?
If something happens to Gervonta, who do they have? Because Deontay, his career circle in a drain. Canelo, you only have 2 fights with him. Not that he's your fighter anyway. He's just with you for 2 fights.
After that, he might go somewhere else. Maybe back to Matchroom.
Take a head count. Deontay's pushing 40 and just got embarrassed in Saudi Arabia. Errol Spence just got beaten half to death by Terrence Crawford. And if you put Gervonta Davis in the ring with Devin Haney, what happens to him and what happens to the PBC as a result? See, I suspect this ain't even about the fight going to Saudi. It's that they don't want the fight to happen.
In Saudi or America, they don't want the fight to happen.
I saw a Twitter account that goes by the name high-level boxing say that Tank built up his fan base organically in the U.S. and earned his paychecks. Bill Haney is trying to take a shortcut and use Tank to make a big paycheck instead of submitting to the A-side, because his son can't sell. Money does talk, though. If I were Tank, give me $50 million guaranteed plus 70% of the pay-per-view sales, and then we can make the fight happen. If not, fuck him.
Do you hear this clown?
The more a guy like this talks, the more he tells on himself. See, you want Gervonta to negotiate a deal that's so lopsided, no one would agree to it. You want them to make an inhospitable environment for the fight to happen, because underneath it all, you don't want the fight to happen. You know that with the Saudis' cash injection, Gervonta's perceived A-side status, it doesn't matter anymore, because you're not the one paying Devin. And I say perceived A-side status because Gervonta never actually used it to make a fight with Devin. He never offered him nothing.
Cowards supporting other cowards because they identify with Gervonta a little more than they identify with Devin. But what is Gervonta if not a fucking degenerate?
He's a degenerate and a coward who's been avoiding meaningful fights for years. You know, the whole reason they place so much emphasis on a Ryan Garcia fight is because it was a big money fight. It's not because Ryan was as accomplished as Vasyl Lomachenko or Teofimo Lopez or George Kambosos or Devin Haney. He's not as accomplished as those fighters. He's not as good a fighter as those fighters. And the whole justification for Gervonta to pursue him and not them is because it was a big money fight. Well, now, this is a big money fight.
This is now a bigger money fight than a Rayo fight, a bigger money fight than an Isaac Cruz fight. You don't turn this down and come back to America and make that same money with those guys.
And that's what it's about for Gervonta and Gervonta's fans. That's what it's about, right? It's about the money. Well, the Devin Haney money is better than the Rayo money, than the Isaac Cruz rematch money. So what's the excuse now? You're talking about what Devin does or doesn't sell? What he does or doesn't sell doesn't matter anymore, because Devin's not waiting on Gervonta to pay him. The Saudis will pay Devin and they'll pay Gervonta. What the fuck is your problem?
He's a coward.
He thinks like a coward. You have this big issue with Gervonta Davis potentially going up to 140 to fight Devin? It's no worse than Gervonta bringing up Jesus Cuellar up from 126 up to 130 to fight him, or Hector Garcia from 130 up to 135.
Are you that big a chicken shit?
That you're now against Gervonta making a similar track from 135 up to 140. If he's all these things and more, all these things that you guys say he is, he should win easy.
You don't think he wins that fight?
In spite of the Saudis' involvement and willingness to pay to make the fight happen, I've already seen Gervonta Davis's fans advocating that he still use a catch weight, that he still stick weight stipulations on Devin when it's not necessary. And frankly, you don't have the leverage to do that because it's not your money paying to make the fight happen.
These fucking morons don't seem to understand how anything works.
The leverage that any A-side fighter has over any B-side fighter is that it's essentially their money making the fight happen. In this situation, no, it wouldn't be Gervonta's money or Al Heyman's money. It would be the Saudis' money. So your perceived marquee value, yeah, that goes out the window. You ain't got that leverage.
If you wanted to use your A-side status, you would have been the one making the offer. But you never did that.
All it is a bunch of cowards defending another coward, the ambassador for degenerates.
Because he's not the ambassador for boxing. He's literally everything that's wrong with boxing.